So anyway, everyone, welcome. Glad you could join. I'm going to spend a little bit of time this evening, my time, daytime, your time, wherever, going through a little bit about my approach to life coaching. My company is called LifeShift, and my approach is based on something called the three principles, which I'm going to share with you in a little bit. But um, basically, the approach. What we're going to cover is a new way of looking at the way that we look at the world, a new way that we look at reality. It's a relatively new perspective, but it's been, as you'll find out later, it's been around for a very long time. But most of humanity today aren't used to looking at the world this way. And when you look at it this way, it can really, really help you to get through life's perceived challenges, life's perceived problems. And as we'll learn later, there really are no such things as challenges and problems. There are just the things that we consider or we think are challenges and problems. I'm going to go into that a little bit later. Let me just start just by introducing myself a little bit so you know a little bit about my background. So obviously my name's Pete. I'm based in Ireland, obviously from the UK originally, and spent a lot of my working life in the US as a marketing person, like in the corporate world. And I've been pretty successful in doing that over 25 years. Kind of climbed up the ladder, as it were, in the world of tech, and accumulated some nice material things along the way, as we all do. But always kind of had this kind of urge, this kind of draw towards why, what are we here for, and how does my mind actually work? And I did physics at college, right? So I learned about these things called particles and atoms and the quantum field and stuff like that. And I still couldn't piece it together with that and how we were living our lives. And there was one particular moment where I was living in Michigan at the time, just gone through a divorce, so not like the pinnacle of my life, so not in a great place. But as usual, I walked past the marketing books and the business books and went straight to the spirituality books and the psychology books and philosophy books and stuff like that. And I picked up a book that you guys probably all know, The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle. And there was one statement in there that he made, which you guys may have heard of. Well, I'm sure most of you have heard of, but to me, it was just so transformational. And it was this. He said in that book, if you're able to look at your thoughts, observe your thoughts, if you know that you are thinking something, then you can't be those thoughts, right? You must be what's looking at those thoughts. And to me, that was just everything just kind of fell into place at that point. Is that here's me thinking that the things that I was experiencing were directly just real things that I was experiencing. When in actual fact, when you really sit back and think about it, you're the thing that's watching it, right? And that gives you some distance from what's going on in your mind. And to me, the impact that had on me, as well as kind of really reigniting my massive interest in all these things, was life just didn't seem as serious after that. And it knocked me for dead. There was a beanbag in these bookstores in the US. You have like beanbags on the floor, and I literally fell back on the beanbag with this book. And it was just, I think I've read the book about 20 times since. But that was my aha kind of real transformational moment. Did it change my life? No. I went back to, that Monday morning, I was in the office doing marketing, continued to develop my career and was successful until I got to a point in my life where successful career, got married, great wife, great kids, lovely house. And still there was something something not quite right. I just didn't feel like all these material things that I thought would bring happiness just didn't really do it for me. And sure, there were still times when I felt down. There was times when I felt depressed. And I didn't really understand why that was the case, but I knew there was an answer there with this spiritual stuff. And at that point, I kind of came to the conclusion that the next stage in my life was using all of this accumulated knowledge about psychology and spirituality and all of that to actually help people. So at that point is where I saw an ad for a guy called David Key that some of you know on the call that has this approach to life coaching, which is very, very much in line with the way I was kind of going, the direction I was going in, and it's called the Three Principles. And the basic premise of this new way of approaching helping people who are having challenges and difficulties in life is this. Everything we experience is based on what we think. Whether you look at a table or you are having an existential crisis, it is all happening in your mind. The five senses that we have do not relay the exact truth of what's out there, right? Our eyes, nose, ears, skin, whatever, they bring in information into our mind. That is then combined with a whole set of information that we've learned over all of our cumulative experiences through our life, is mixed in with what we perceive out there, and then it's played back to us kind of like a movie. And that's what we watch. And that is all based on thought. It's actually based on three things, which I'll go into in a second. But primarily, it is everything that we experience in life is based on what we think. Everything that we think in life typically generates some kind of an emotion. Right? Emotions are generated by thoughts. Our feelings are generated by our thoughts, even if sometimes we're not aware of it. The emotions we feel are based on what we think. And then those emotions generate our behavior. Thoughts lead to feelings, lead to behavior. That's the premise on which this approach is based. If you think about it, the thoughts that we have, we think about 60,000 thoughts a day. Most of those thoughts, 99.9% of them are not our own thoughts, right? We all know this, right? These are just thoughts that just come into your head. And where did that come from, right? And the majority of those thoughts, they just go past us, right? I mean, you can't look at a car without thinking that that's a car. So that's perception is a thought. Lots of these thoughts go past every day. And there's some thoughts that don't. And I'll talk to you in a minute about why those thoughts are not thoughts that just go by, that you hold on to them. But that is the source of a lot of the frustration, those negatively charged thoughts that go past our field of awareness. When we grab hold of them, they tend to grow, right? I'll give this analogy that David likes to use of a kind of a bubble machine, right? That you have this bubble machine generating all of these thoughts, all these bubbles that are just being blown across in the wind, right? There's no sense of direction or anything to them. And you, for the most part, you just watch them go by. But there are some thoughts that you keep hold of. And they're the ones that typically are negatively charged. And when you hold on to them, they grow, they expand. In fact, they actually spawn other thought bubbles are negative as well, right? And that's why one initial thought can spiral into a series of cascading thoughts that just drag you down and make you feel, because there's the link, right? Thoughts to feelings, make you feel negative, make you feel bad. This is the way the human mind works for everybody on the planet, right? And we're all unique. All these thoughts that we have, this combination of bubbles that we think of, they're all unique to every human being. So the way that two people perceive something out there is not always exactly the same. I like to use this analogy of like there's two people walking in the woods, and they walk past a tree. And one person sees a tree and like, whoa, that's a tree. That's nice. Walks past. The other person walks past that tree. That was the same tree that they fell off when they were 4 years old and broke their arm. That is not the same tree to both those people. That tree is generating two very, very different reactions in both of those people. What does that mean? Because the tree's the same tree, right? What that means is that what those two people are perceiving is primarily dictated by what they think, which is primarily dictated by their experiences in life. The tree is just a tree. Situations outside, circumstances outside, things that we see and perceive outside are just doing their thing. It is the universe behaving as the universe behaves. It's when we bring it inside and internalize it and apply our thoughts and our preferences and our programs to it that it becomes an experience to us. What does that mean? That means that there are a lot of the things that you experience out there that you may perceive as being negative actually may not be negative to somebody else. Just the extent to which you allow it to be negative. I'm going to stop there and have a drink of tea. Is this making sense, guys? Um, like, can anybody just jump in the chat and just let me know, like, is this, to me, I think this is quite intuitive that we're talking about here. A lot of the people I talk to about who don't know this, it's interesting. They kind of feel it's innate, like they kind of intuit it, but they hadn't really thought about it or digested it before. Let me talk to you a little bit about the approach, the principles-based approach that we use. There was a guy about 30, 40 years ago now, Sid Banks. He was actually a welder based in Scotland who had this kind of epiphany, right? This revelation, which is very similar to what I've described here about the way that the mind works and how we all experience the world. And he actually coined three key principles that construct or in combination form the human experience. The first one is mind. And that's not your own personal mind he's meaning there. He means that the universal mind, right? The intelligence that's innate in everything that we experience. The intelligence that makes your heart beat. We don't think about our heart beating, but there's some kind of intelligence that makes our heart beat. There's some kind of intelligence that turns a seed into a massive acorn. From a seed into a massive tree, like a 200-foot oak or something, right? That makes supernovas explode at the other side of the galaxy. It's an amazingly intelligent source of wisdom, which is the universal mind. But we are part of the universe too, so we have that too, right? Now, we also have our local minds as well, but there is this driving innate wisdom that we all have inside of us. And that's a key thing that I talk to clients about in coaching is we all have this. We all have it. It gets covered up by thinking all the time, but we all have this innate wisdom inside of us. So that's the first one, mind. The second one is consciousness. And what this really means is awareness, right? If we weren't aware of things, we couldn't be aware of our thoughts, then because everything that we think is how we perceive the world, we wouldn't be perceiving a world, so nothing would exist, right? Without consciousness, we couldn't perceive the concept of this mind, this universal intelligence. So consciousness is our awareness of everything that we experience in the world. And then the third concept, the third principle, is the mind, is the thought itself, right? Which is the link between mind and consciousness and to how we experience our daily lives. It's kind of like it's kind of the rudder that kind of guides us through life. And so let me just talk a little bit about that, because thoughts are the main mechanism by which I can help clients get over some of their perceived problems, right? So we talked about these thoughts that kind of, come into your mind for no reason. Well, there is a reason why thoughts come into your mind. And most of them are kind of subconscious thoughts that you didn't decide. Most of them actually are time-based. Most of them are either based in the past, so regret of the past, or reliving some kind of trauma in the past, mistakes you made, etc. Or they're in the future, which is what ifs, right? What if this happens? What if that happens? Usually just unreasonably, imaginative scenarios for the future. Those thoughts exist in time, but actually, if you think about it, the past doesn't actually exist, right? Past just happened. Now it's a memory. It's a memory that you experience now. Likewise, the future doesn't exist, but it can't do, right? It hasn't happened yet. But it is an imaginary world, imaginary scenarios that we remember, that we imagine at this point in time, which is the now. The only real truth of living in the world is this moment right now. And this moment consists of all of those memories we've experienced in the past and all of those imaginings that we have of the future. None of them actually exist, and yet they actually dominate our lives, right? These thoughts come into your mind. Most of them is your mind's way of protecting you, especially the what ifs, right? It will look at every single possible scenario that you could imagine, and some you can't even possibly imagine, in an effort to try and prepare you for that eventuality. How often in your lives have you imagined these kind of what if scenarios, these worst case outcomes that never actually happened? I mean, for me personally, 98% probably. And for the ones that did happen, typically wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. And despite all of that memory, those memories of that actually that being the outcome, I still have what ifs. I have what ifs all the time. There's nothing wrong with having these thoughts come into your mind about the past and the future. There's nothing wrong with having negative thoughts coming in. Here's the key, right? And it goes back to that bubble machine analogy, right? Those thoughts are there for a reason. They're there to protect you. Don't fight them, but you can let them go. A thought coming in about a tree and a thought coming in about a nasty email from your boss are just thoughts. Neither of them, they both actually are charged exactly the same way. It's just when we apply our conditioning to it, we don't mind looking at a tree, but we really mind looking at an email from our boss that we're not happy about. And that is what triggers that feeling of negativity that could trigger an emotion. Does that make sense? I know it just makes sense to me just intuitively in the way I live my life. If you know the analogy, and this is something that is always like a real challenge for me, and it still is, I love to drive. I love to drive probably a little bit faster than most people. I live in the outskirts of Cork City, and when I drive into the city, there's just one road to drive in on. It's not a big road. And inevitably, when I'm driving down that road, which is an 80-kilometer-mile-an-hour speed limit, I'll be behind a car that's doing 50. And up until just a few years ago, I'd be driving down that road and I'd come across a 50-mile-an-hour car and I would get so frustrated. The thought straight away would pop in, this car's doing it on purpose. They've seen me come up to them quite quickly, so they've slowed down just to piss me off. Absolutely adamant that was the case every single time. So that's the thought that would come up, right? An untrue thought, but I would keep hold of that thought. I wouldn't keep hold of the white lines passing down the street, but I would keep hold of that one. That would cause an emotional reaction to me, which is frustration, anger. They're the two main ones. And then that in turn would result in a behavior. I'm going to drive another foot closer. I'm going to weave a little bit onto the right side of the road, because we drive on the left here, to try and show that person I want to overtake. Almost dangerous behavior, right? All of that happens in the space of 2-3 seconds. And I'm sure you guys can think of scenarios where you've experienced a similar kind of thing as well, right? For all I know, that car in front of me is an 80-year-old grandfather going to see his grandkids and is absolutely terrified of driving on the road. And that's made worse by this boy racer behind him trying to overtake him, right? It's not fair. So now that I've really started to understand this approach that really helps people to think that is just a thought. It doesn't mean anything. You can let that thought go. You really can. And I know that sounds like a simple statement, and you can intellectualize that statement pretty easily. But to actually really absorb it and really understand it and put it into practice is transformational, actually. So that was my test, right? So I used that as a test when I kind of discovered this way of looking at the world. And so now I come up to a slow car and I'll purposefully back off unconsciously. I won't even think about backing off. There's something now in me that will just pull back and just, hey, it's just a thought, let it go. And I just relax and I don't get stressed. I don't put anybody in danger, least of all myself. In fact, I can look around now and I see things. I see houses I hadn't seen before because I was always so focused on whatever car was in front of me. It's made that journey a lot more pleasant for me. Now that's a small example, but that same process is applicable to any kind of feeling that you might have. Okay, so just want to recap on that one because it's really important. What we experience in our human world is a combination of mind, consciousness, and the way we think. The way we personally experience the world is primarily down to what we think, not what is outside there, okay? So that whenever we get situations where it's like, that person's not being nice, or this situation is unacceptable to me, it is never the situation that's causing that reaction in you. It is always your thoughts, okay? I'm gonna say one more thing and then I'll put out for a few questions. But in terms of just my approach to how I help people with this, is a lot of it is just very conversational. I have a few clients now that I've talked to about this. I'm not trying to teach anything here. Um, all the things I've talked about tonight is it's an understanding that every human being has always had. We've just forgotten about it. And I think it's with this approach, it's the coach's responsibility to try to kind of impart this understanding so that the client can get to their own realization and understanding of the way that their mind works, because this is the way that every human mind works. Whether you have, anxiety, stress, depression, relationship issues, it all stems from the way you think. And in that respect, this approach to coaching can deal with a myriad of different conditions without focusing on the condition. I very seldom talk about the content of the thought that's causing the challenge. Just talk about the nature of thought itself. And very often, just discussing the nature of thought is enough for someone to get some realization that, wow, I never looked at it that way before. So my approach is in two phases. The first phase is to kind of help the client get to a realization of this thought process, and give them, kind of tools, techniques to let go of the thoughts as they come past, right? Kind of like, I don't know, like clouds in the sky, right? Just let them go across the sky. That they're just being clouds. It's just being the weather. It's totally natural until you look at a big thundercloud, and then you keep hold of it and stand underneath it, and then you get hit by thunder and lightning, right? That's not good. So clear the mind of a lot of this negative thinking by just letting it go. That then frees up more of this. I talked about that kind of universal mind, right? That innate wisdom that we all have inside of us. That clears the mind to start to kind of really kind of see this innate wisdom that's inside you. Many of the people I talk to, they have challenges in life, but many of those challenges are, I don't understand my role in life. I don't understand what my purpose is. It's my belief that we all have a purpose, all of us, right? We're kind of like, there's like a diamond inside of each one of us, right? And that diamond has been obscured over the years by, kind of just by the process of thinking, of our programming, of the way we've been brought up, etc., all kinds of things. As you start to clear these unhealthy, illusory thoughts, you start to uncover more of this diamond, right? More of this light that comes out. So the second phase in the coaching approach for me is having now had an understanding of how you can alleviate some of this negative thinking, clear your mind, be a more content person, and be able to deal with challenges as they come up, because they're not challenges, it's you. You have the willpower to be able to let things go. Having done that, you then can start to realize that there is another level of wisdom inside you that's going to take you to places where you want to go. Whether it's a career you want to go in or a relationship you want to go in, I kind of think about it as the first phase is to clear the path. The second phase is to plot the course, based on a new understanding of how not just of how the human mind works, but how the universe works, right? We're all part of this unfolding of the universe, and you can really join that unfolding and really appreciate it when you get rid of a lot of these negative thoughts. So there are people that I was really starting to see now that, I've had this, I don't know, one client, I've always had this kind of urge to write, but I've never really pursued it. I've done my career, and then I've been depressed for a while, and then who started just for no reason, just started to write stuff now. Having gone through, just a couple of sessions with this approach. And that is this innate wisdom shining through, right? This is what you're supposed to do. This is the flow. This is the river that you should be flowing. And you've been fighting that river for so long now and causing rapids. You don't need to. You can just let it go. But you need to have a clearer mind in order to make that happen. So basically, that's the approach. I know from the folks that I know are on this call and folks that we've worked with in the coaching practice that this has been transformational for many, many people. It doesn't really focus on, setting objectives and goals and, and how do you get from A to B, and no, No, this is neither does it focus on any kind of past trauma or something that, you need to rectify from the past and relive it. No, this is based on the person sitting in front of me right now in this moment. And thought processes, like understand the way the mind and your consciousness really works. And the rest will just come out. Part of this innate intelligence that we all have will just surface a lot of these things innately in the client, without you having to pull it out of them. That's not what I'm here to do. So it's a really engaging and really informal and conversational approach to coaching, and it's something that is applicable to a wide range of different supposed challenges that people have, and it's long lasting because it's not a fix. It's a re-understanding of the way things really work, and that is transformational and permanent. So that's it, guys. I'm going to stop there because I've thrown a hell of a lot out there. I don't know if some of you have any kind of questions. I haven't had a chance to. I've been so carried away talking. I haven't looked at any of the comment. Oh, thank you. Awesome. We usually have different people articulating understanding, clear path, and the plot of the course. Yeah, Crystal, I've found that it's been really interesting that it kind of, the clients have kind of been informing me of, well, it's great that I can now go into the world and like not feel as bad. Not that this instantly goes away, but I can really stand back and say, you know what? I am the observer of these thoughts. I am not these thoughts. If you get past that, the biggest hurdle to me for the people I've talked to, and for me personally, was you don't have to believe the thoughts. That's huge. I spent years believing one thought, just one thought, not good enough, one thought. And it killed me. Like, it was just awful. And you can actually let it go. You can just let it go like that. It's just unbelievable. But then the clients were saying, Crystal, what happens after? What can I do with this? What is it that I want to do? I want to do something with this. And that is, you find your North Star, which you've probably lost it for a while, but it will come back. It will be discovered again. Yeah, Melissa, I mean, it's a big one, right? One of the things I do sometimes is talk to people in business about, imposter syndrome, and people suffer from that a lot. It's just, I'm not good enough, and I'm acting, and one day somebody will find out the real me. It's just a thought. It's not real at all. I think that a lot, and then I go back and sometimes I have to look at my CV, my resume, just to prove that, like, oh, no, I have done these things. No, I have. So I must have been successful at some point. I'm not a complete failure. I have to look at evidence of truth because the thoughts can just drown that evidence out and say, nope, that was just luck. That was just luck. Yeah. Does anybody have any comment? Anybody want to talk? Anybody have any other comments? Anything that you want to add to what I've said? Or tell me if it doesn't make sense and I'm talking bollocks. Yeah, Vana, go for it.
Oh my gosh, of course I want to talk. Oh, this was really good today. Really, really good. And probably most everyone on here is a veteran in it, and or at least has some sort of an understanding. But again, you said it in a different way. I loved the tree because we all see things differently. We're looking at the same thing and we see things differently. So bravo.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. It is actually interesting when you listen to David talking about this all the time and you go into the calls and listen to other people talk. It's kind of really interesting to hear yourself talk about it, especially in front of a group like this. It's it's interesting. Like, do I get it? Do I get it? But I know I get it because I have the good feeling. So I know there's something working there. Does anybody else want to say anything? Erin?
Yeah, Pete. Pete, good job, man. That's
Thanks,
really
man.
good. It was really nice to listen to you talk about this. I love the conversation.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah. You said something that kind of I had to write it down to bring it up again. And it's like always a nice refresher when you say looking at the nature of thought and seeing thinking from a different perspective, just like what Vanna just said. That's so clutch to just bring out to your clients. I haven't sat with any clients, but that right there is like a showstopper.
Yeah.
It'll put you in your place. Like it will really will. It's a good way to like sit there and just have them reflect on that.
You can actually tell her, and especially in the earlier sessions where the client's presenting what their challenges are, and you can tell by talking to them that they are totally fixed in that problem. They are
Yeah.
living the problem. They go into excruciating detail about it, to the point where I actually pull back and say, you don't have to talk about the details of the problem. I can see from the way we're talking that you are living that problem right now. And the truth is, you don't have to. And the first reaction is almost disbelief. It's like, well, that's who I am. So how can I not live it?
Right.
And it's not who you
It's
are.
yeah, it's just associating that. Right. Yeah.
It's not
Uh-huh.
who you are, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
Not.
yeah, yeah. It's interesting. Yeah. Penny,
Great job, Pete.
thanks, Aaron. I appreciate that, man. Thank you.
Oh, no, you did really well. I liked that your voice was very calming. It was very, yeah. Anyway, it was good. You did. In fact, I felt a little bit bad because I got up really early this morning, so I'm kind of tired. That's why my head was nodding a little bit.
Well,
It
thank
wasn't
you.
because you were boring. I'm just tired. I really
That's
was
okay.
liking it.
Hey, Penny, look, you must be having a good feeling to fall asleep while I'm talking. So that's good. That's good.
That must be it. I do want to say something though, is like I've noticed it. So you've done some, you had some clients. I've done a little bit of work with just one person that I just met that, she actually had come to me for a job with our other business, which wasn't a fit for her, but I offered her coaching instead.
Yeah.
And when I worked with her yesterday, I had gotten in my head over something that happened just before. And even though I worked on calming myself down, the whole session did not go
Right.
because
Right.
I was too in my head.
Yeah.
I mean, well, I shouldn't say it didn't go well. It just, I mean, there were some good points in it, but even her dog started getting antsy and jumping up on her, and it was really interesting.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
it's like how do we get ourselves out of our head
Yeah.
for
Yeah. And
doing it?
it's difficult to, and we talk about feeding the rabbit. So the clients I have it because I've done a few sessions now, I don't know, 15 sessions or so, and across them all. And I would say that it is tempting to get involved in the drama, because these people really feel it and you want to empathize and you want to
Mm-hmm.
walk in their shoes a little bit, and you know, you just got to come back to you are okay, you are perfect, you are not broken, and take it from when you step back and take it from that perspective. It does change the tenor of the conversation a little bit. You tend to be calmer, and then they slow down as well. The first couple of sessions,
Yeah,
I would take a speed check, the speedometer, and almost everybody's at 200 miles an hour. And then by the end of the session, they've come down to 80, which, I mean, 80 is still fast, but 80 is not 250. And a lot of it is that they weren't focusing on the problem. They were focusing
yeah,
on how they think of the problem, and it's just a
yeah,
perspective that people just don't typically take that perspective, because they don't believe that they can stand back. They're in it. It's like
right.
a goldfish in a bowl. Like they're immersed in the water. They don't see it. You know.
Yeah. Well, and I tried that analogy with how fast the mind going, but she doesn't think her mind is going that fast. So she's
Okay.
like, "Oh, I'd say mine's really slow," but yet she's describing something, and you can see the mind's like,
Yeah.
"Can you?" Because it wasn't this last session, but the session before that is like, "Can you see how your thoughts went from here to here to here to here to here?"
I think you can tell. and I know you can, Penny. I think you can tell when someone's mind's racing. You can just tell in the mannerism. There's an energy, So it's just it's their mind telling them, say you're going at 20 when, when everything on the external is showing that they're actually doing 220, So, these people, these understandably, they're coming to us for help because they, maybe feeling a bit lost or can't gauge that properly, and because it is a misunderstanding of it's a faulty mechanism that can be easily fixed if you just understand how to fix it. So it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing.
And it is amazing. And you know what's really amazing though is because she came to me for a job that I couldn't give her, and then she said she still isn't having she still hasn't found a job. And so I mentioned something to the behavior therapist that was there with my son and said something about her. And he said, yeah, it's really amazing. Nobody's even showed any interest in the ad that we put out to find some people. And then he said something like, wait a minute, she just told me that she has a master's degree in education. So I connected the two of them and I just got her a job.
There you go. That's a value add. That's a value add to the three principles there, Penny. Absolutely. Wow.
Yeah.
Well done.
So the session wasn't good in other ways, but I got her a job.
Oh, that's very cool. That's very cool.
Yeah.
Just keep going. You know what? I just found just trying to any pro bono, any session you could get, just the practice. And it doesn't take much because David's right. These are just they are just conversations. There is no right or wrong. It's just a conversation.
Right.
And sometimes you're lucky and you see a penny drop, but oftentimes it's the next session, or I get an email in between sessions saying, wow, I was in the shower and something just dropped for me. It's like sometimes it's, you're planting seeds and they'll germinate when they're ready, but yeah, good story. Anybody else want to share anything? Geez, I feel a bit like David Key here. I don't really have the accent, but All right, guys. Look, I'll let you. I know some of you guys, it's 20 to 9. Some people, it's middle of your day, so I'll let you go. But look, I do want to say thank you for showing up. This means a hell of a lot to me that you guys showed up, and hope some of you, I don't know, saw a different way of looking at the three principles. And folks who aren't coaches, hopefully you've learned a little bit about the way that things really work and how it can help you with any difficulties that you have. But look, it was great to spend time with you guys today. I really appreciate it, and have a great rest of your day. Take care, guys. See ya. Bye.